Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Ardian from Cooperation Development Institute. Just a quick reminder about the timing. I mean, we are within the academic 15 minutes space to start. But as my very good friend Frank Hanke always used to say in these occasions, the best are already here, isn't it, Frank? Yes, that's true. So I think that we are ready to start this side event. You'll see some nice, good-looking books with a beautiful photo of the port of Durrës. It's the study that we have prepared and that we will present during the side event. But before we start the event, I would like very much to leave the floor to the host, Mr. Piero Vengo, Chief Executive Officer of Durrës Port Authority. And the person who is organized all these events today, a very big support of connectivity, not only maritime connectivity, not only waterborne, and also one of the initiators and the guys that had the idea of a Center for Maritime Affairs. So, Piero, the floor is yours.
Të nderuar miq, nderuar kolegë, partnerë të detarisë shqiptare, Mirëserdhët në portin e Durrësit. Dear Mate, dear friends, I hope you'll allow me to address this assembly first in Albanian, and then I'll resume to our conversation in English to allow for an easier interaction. Për vitin e dytë radhazi, me mbështetjen e Ministrisë Infrastrukturës dhe Energjisë dhe Sekretariatit Rajonal të Transportit, shënojmë ditën botërore të detarisë. Por si vjet kemi privilegjin ta bëjmë këtë në suazën e Tirana Connectivity Forum. Në edicionin e tij të 8, Tirana Connectivity Forum është kthyer në një pikë takim të rëndësishëm dhe në një moment mendoj reflektimi të kthjellët në agjendën teje të ngarkuar të bashkëpunimit rajonal. Ndaj dhe dua të përgëzoj këtu Ardianin, Kriselën dhe ekipin e CDI për punën dhe këmbguljen e tyre për ta bërë këtë vend dhe këtë rajon të Europës më të sigurt dhe të begat. Nuk keni arritur fatkeqësisht fitoni betejën me motin, por të paktën në Durrës do të gjeni gjithmonë një stre. Thash pak më parë dita botërore e detarisë, por në fakt këtë vit bashkë me Ministrinë e Infrastrukturës dhe Energjisë dhe Qendrën e Ekselencës për çështje detare, kemi dashur të shkojmë përtej dhe të organizojmë një javë të plotë me prezantime, debate, publikime, madje edhe trajnime ndërgjegjësuese. Jo për të shtuar aktivitete, por për të bashkuar gjithë profesionistët e këtij sektori nga bota akademike, politik bërësit, regulatorët dhe deri tek operatorët privat. Në mahallën tonë ballkanike ne konsiderojmë shpesh detin si një sfond dytësor, si një kufi, si një hapësirë që nuk na përket me të vërtetë. Qendra e Ekselencës për çështje detare në portin e Durrësit është krijuar pikërisht për ta luftuar këtë dukuri dhe për ta afruar më shumë shoqërinë tonë, edukimin, punësimin, aktivitetin tregtar dhe prodhues me detin. Ndaj jam vërtet i lumtur që partnerët tanë nga Fondacioni Konrad Adenauer do të publikojnë sot studimin për transportin detar dhe lumor në rajonin e Ballkanit perëndimor. Sepse edhe ne jemi në fakt një gadishull, si ai italik, si ai iberik, ku deti është përcaktuesi i interesave kombëtare dhe i mundësive zhvillimore. Në të vërtetë, pandemia na mësoi diçka që e dinim, por e kishim harruar. Na mësoi se sa i pazëvendësueshëm është transporti detar. Kriza energjetike dhe ajo klimatike na kujtojnë se çfarë peshe ka transporti detar në tërësinë e një zinxhiri prodhimi, të cilin e kemi marrë gjithnjë si të mirëqenë. Dhe tani më efektet e luftës në Ukrainë na bëjnë të kuptojmë se përplasjet gjeopolitike marrin shpeshherë edhe trajton e distorsioneve logjistike, të cilat bashkë me inovacionin vijojnë të ushtrojnë presion mbi stabilitetin e ekonomive tona. Për gjitha këto arsye, një strategji e mirëfillt për ekonominë blu, një infrastrukturë portuale e sigurt, e ndërlidhur dhe e qëndrueshme është kyçe. Portet e thjeshta të ngarkim-shkarkimit janë të pamjaftueshme për të mbështetur aktivitetin ekonomik të një vendi. Ndaj dhe qeveria shqiptare ka nisur një program ambicioz investimesh dhe reformash në sektorin portual dhe në turizmin detar. Strategjia e autoritetit portual në drejtimin e Ministrisë Infrastrukturës dhe Energjisë është pikërisht që ta transformojmë kompleksin portual Durrës-Porto Romano në një nyje logjistike dhe turistike, e cila mund të funksionojë si një piknisje për gjithë hinterlandin ton rajonal. Në këtë përpjekje, nuk kemi harruar të marrim parasysh dhe nevojat tona për sa i përket sigurisë, mjedisit, përmirësimit të shërbimeve, automatizimit përpunimit dhe rritjes së kapaciteteve kibernetike. Mendoj se pikërisht ky vizion na jep të drejtën të kërkojmë që projektet e infrastrukturës jo vetëm në Shqipëri, por gjithashtu në Kosovë dhe në Maqedoninë e Veriut, të kenë vëmendjen e dur të Bashkimit Evropian dhe të institucioneve financiare ndërkombëtare, në mënyrë që të përfshihen në rrjetin kritik evropian të transportit, atë që ndryshe quhet Core TNT Network. To paraphrase a word of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, despite many advances and technological improvements, the power and unpredictability of the sea are unchanged. In other words, the sea is always right. And it is time that in this region we start to listen and be prepared. And without any transition, please allow me to invite Tobias Rutasov, who will join in online, the country director for Konrad Adenauer Stiftung in Albania, and after him, the tireless and ever helpful Matej Zakonczek to address this meeting. Ju falenderit.
Well, good morning, everyone. I hope I can be heard. Dear Mr. Wengo, dear Matej Sakonczek from Transport Community, dear colleagues from the Cooperation and Development Institute, dear colleagues from Heinrich Böll Foundation and Untitled Chapter, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. The Western Balkans, particularly Albania and North Macedonia, have once again been at the forefront of political and media attention before the summer break. After years of waiting, accession negotiations with both countries have finally moved further ahead. Yet at the same time, Europe is facing enormous challenges with the Russian war of aggression in Ukraine and the concomitant energy crises around the continent. In addition, after 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, inflation is sharply rising in many countries, and this affects particularly the Western Balkan 6. This year's Tirana Connectivity Forum, with the title Securely Connected, takes up these issues in the light of connectivity. The current war in Ukraine has underlined the security implications of connectivity. The Western Balkan 6 are at the crossroads of the main European corridors of transport for people and goods, connecting the Black Sea with the Adriatic. In terms of energy, the TAP pipeline brings gas from Azerbaijan via the Western Balkans to the south of Europe. In this volatile environment, the technical and market preconditions of connectivity investments must be taken into consideration and take into consideration the security and geopolitical needs of Europe. Even more importantly, we need to start talking again about securing our transport links and infrastructure, both in the physical and economic sense. However, secure infrastructure requires secure institutions in the Western Balkan countries. These institutions must be protected and resilient against incompetency, state capture, and corruptions. Thus, we need further engaging essential reforms to improve the democratic legitimacy of the institutions in charge in the Western Balkan 6, the legitimacy of the deliverables, and very importantly, the legitimacy of their internal processes and good governance mechanisms. In that effort, the role of Western Balkan 6 civil society is of utmost and systematically important, and its contribution to the good governance of the connectivity policies and structures in charge is irreplaceable. Coming now specifically to this day and this panel, in December 2021, the EU Commission published a planning methodology for the Trans-European Transport Network TEN-T, which is the most novelty regarding the Western Balkan 6 is the appearance of the Western Balkans European Transport Corridor. Covering the Western Balkans Peninsula, the corridor is designed north-south and supported by the market, geography, and technical parameters, while climate change and security favor its east-west connectivity. The war in Ukraine has brought the security factor of this even more at the center of policymaking, both in the existing European Union and also the accession states in the Western Balkans. Now, today, with the first block of Tirana Connectivity Forum 2022, we will focus on the east-west dimension of this corridor through the waterborne Rhine-Danube corridor, including the Adriatic maritime dimension. I'm delighted that at this panel, we can present for the first time publicly our recently finished study, Blue Connectivity, Maritime and Inland Waterways in the Balkans Peninsula. This has been a joint project of the CAS offices in Serbia and Albania, together with the Cooperation and Development Institute. Special thanks here also to Ardian for coordinating all of this. And it's already our special or second edited volume after focusing on railroad links last year. So we're basically looking at all different dimensions from time to time, starting with railroads, waterborne, and hopefully also next other links in the Western Balkans. I'm very grateful to the Cooperation and Development Institute for taking up this important issue of waterways connectivity as part of this year's Connectivity Forum. Thank you for organizing this excellent event now for the 8th time. It has certainly become the annual benchmark for experts, researchers, academicians, civil society organizations, and policymakers involved in EU integration, regional cooperation, and connectivity dynamics. A special thanks also goes to Mr. Wengo from the Port of Doris, which allows us to hold this event in a very adequate surrounding, I believe, for the topics to be discussed. What could be a better venue than the Port of Doris, which is, moving on to become an even more important part, as we will hear later also in the presentation for the development of Newport. As Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, we are proud to support the Tirana Connectivity Forum with our contribution. The results of recent conferences have been impressive, and our joint publication is enjoying popularity and high demand. Whilst we cannot support infrastructural projects ourselves, we continue to reiterate the importance of infrastructure as a fundamental requirement for better connectivity and regional cooperation. For us, the continuous support of the Berlin process and the associated connectivity issues in all countries of the Western Balkans 6, as well as in our headquarters in Berlin, is important. And I hope that at this conference, we see further contributions, no matter how small, for the success of reforms currently undertaken and the further integration of the Western Balkans in the EU through means of connectivity. Thank you for your attention. And despite me not being able with you today in Durrës and in the next days in Tirana, I wish us very good discussions during this panel and the whole of Tirana Connectivity Forum 2022. Thank you very much.
Good morning, also from my side. Dear Ardian, dear Piro, dear friends, dear colleagues, it's great to be again in Durrës. It really feels like a little bit of home. So thank you, Piro, and specifically Durrës Port Authority for always welcoming us here, and really for this place to become not only a place that connects the ships, but also the place that connects people. And I think that this is really in the heart of what the ports of 21st century should be about. They should be the economic nodes, the nodes where the knowledge exchanges, where the ships come, where the trade happens, but where the people connect. And I think this, with the Durrës port and with also the ambitions that Albania has regarding the maritime business, this is becoming a reality. And this is mainly thanks not to ships, not to cranes, but to people who run it. So thank you very much. My role here today is to set the scene. And every time you go to a different conference, you have to do different things. And this is the first time that I have to set the scene for something. So I had to Google what that means. And basically, the Google was not much of the help, but it says that to set the scene means to establish when and where the plot takes place. So that's the first thing that I need to do. It's a storytelling, can be drawn from imagination. It can be based on a historical events and geographical location. So I will basically try to do exactly that. Basically, I'll try to set the scene for you based on the imagination, historical events, and geographical location of where we are today. So starting, if you imagine yourself to be in this beautiful part of Europe, and go like a bird above it, where you don't see the borders, you don't see the political problems, you don't see everyday frustrations. What do you see? And what do you see in this beautiful part of Europe is, first of all, a lot of mountains. You see the geography it's beautiful, but challenging. At the same time, you see the rivers that are basically flowing down, the big rivers of Danube, the rivers of Sava, the rivers of Tisa, going all the way down to the Black Sea. On the other hand, you see the other side, which is what the Turks called White Sea or Mediterranean. So the Black Sea on one side, and on the other side, you see the Mediterranean. You see that part of this continent is very close to Asia. It's actually touching, it's actually connecting Europe with Asia. It's connecting Europe with also throughout the sea with Africa. So you also see that it might be the shortest route if you travel from Suez towards Europe is actually here. So these are the potentials of this beautiful region. And you also see its people, which I think are the best part of this region. Better than any mountains, any rail, any ships, I think are its people. But now you come a bit closer and you start seeing also all the challenges of this region. And what do you see when you start seeing the challenges of this region? You see the ports, you see the port of Bar, you see the port of Durrës, which need a much better modern rail connection. You see that the river levels can be very low during the winter, during the summer, sorry. You see that actually to now it's a challenge to go from the Black Sea all the way to the Central Europe because of the low level of the rivers. You see that there is a lack of the multimodal nodes, the nodes that would connect rail with ports, ports with roads, and so on. You see that the traffic at the borders is too long. You see that the trucks are waiting for too long at the border crossings, as well as people, specifically during the summer. You also see that if you go much eastern from this region, that there is war going on. And you also see that a lot of young people are leaving the region. And these are the challenges of this region. But then if you come even closer, and when you're already becoming a bit, let's say, when the situation is becoming quite serious, you also see that the things are moving. You see that the rail is actually getting reconstructed. You see that the rail connections are getting modernized. Perhaps slower than we wish, but things are happening on the ground. Corridor VIII, connecting Black Sea with Mediterranean, is being built. Corridor X is being modernized. You can see that the dredging is done on the rivers of Danube. You see for the first time that we have the rail, which goes 200 kilometers per hour between Belgrade and Novi Sad. We see that the things are slowly but surely changing. You see some integrated border crossings, which is exactly where we should go. All border crossings in the Western Balkans should be integrated. And you also see that officials from Albania, North Macedonia, from Serbia, from Montenegro are going to Brussels in order to have negotiations with the EU, in order to become a full member of the Union. And last, but definitely not least, you see thousands of young people going to the concerts to Tirana for the European Capital of Youth. And that's the future of the region. So, ladies and gentlemen, this was a little bit of scene setting. So I hope I did my job well. And with that, I'm giving the floor back to Ardian. Thank you very much.
Made, it is actually a trick that repeats itself every time we have you here. I mean, it's always a pleasure and a privilege to have you here, but it's so difficult to continue after you. I loved your mentioning of Durasport that connects not only ships, but connects also people. And not people only as passengers, but people also as resources. And the Center of Excellence for Maritime Affairs is one of these. Tirana Connectivity Forum here is one of those examples. So thank you very, very much for bringing in the people dimension always. It's one of the features, I mean, of the Transport Permanent Secretariat during under your heat. And I liked your definition on when and where the plot takes place. So after you setting the scene and underlining the constructive side of what we're doing, I mean, the things are moving. We are doing our work, people are meeting, borders are being integrated, new infrastructure is being planned and implemented. Now it's time to go a little bit deeper, to start the plot, if I may say so. And we are very happy to start with the first panel, which is a panel of distinguished representatives from the waterborne transport from the Southeast Europe. I will call it like this because we have people, we have guests from also Greece and Bulgaria to come and present this book, which is still warm from the printing press, brought it today by Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. Thank you, Claudia, for bringing it. And I would like to invite our panelists, Mr. Elson Thana from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy in Albania, Mr. George Otasevich, an advisor to the Ministry of Capital Investment in Montenegro. Welcome, George, you can come and sit. We will have Mr. Dario Buzic from Ministry of Communication and Transport from Bosnia and Herzegovina. He'll be online with us. We'll have our very dear colleague Anna Blažeska from Estima in North Macedonia. We have the pleasure to have Mr. Božidar Yankov from the Executive Agency of Exploration and Maintenance of Danube from Bulgaria, Mr. Vladislav Maraj that joins us from University of Belgrade, Faculty of Transport, and Mr. George Zogopoulos, that comes from Greece. So as you will see, it's a absolutely idiosyncratic panel where we have a lot of people from different backgrounds to talk about what we decide to call blue connectivity. It's beautiful, it's nice, it's optimistic, and basically what the dynamic of the forum will be that each of the participants will present the most salient points of the waterborne connectivity, waterborne transport in their own countries. But given that a lot of things are happening now in Albania, we have the chance and the opportunity to have with us Mr. Eric Smith from Royal Haskoning, Netherlands, who will do a very short presentation of how the port of Durrës, Porto Romano, will look like, always looking into the future. So basically, we'll have an hour and a half to talk about all this. Afterwards, we'll have some questions and answers, but I would like to start with Mr. Elson Thana from Albania, with a short presentation, not only of the port of Durrës, which is one of the main nodes, maritime nodes in this part of the Adriatic, but also a short mentioning of all the other ports and maritime resources that Albania offers, not only to Albania, but also to the region. Elson, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ardian, for giving me the floor. Before I start the presentation, I'd like to make a note. It's amazing to see that lately the importance of maritime transport in Albania is increasing very much. Before, maritime transport was like a second-handed. Now, because of the attention given probably by the Port of Durrës and CEO Port of Durrës and Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy. So I'd like to thank Mr. Vengu for all the things that he's doing on maritime transport. The establishment of SEMA is a very good innovation and a good idea. Secondly, I would like to thank you because you are always, to do a reform in the something, we need people, need institutions, agencies, private entities, and your contribution in connectivity agenda is much to be appreciated. So I thank you, and this is nice to work with you. I'll start my presentation on doing very short presentation of the maritime transport and infrastructure here in Albania. In Albania, there are 4 conventional ports, 3 terminals, and we also have inland waterway with 2 international navigable lakes in Albania. I'll start with the northern port, which is the port of Shëngjin, which is only for processing of goods. It's one of the ports that is a small one, and it's covering all the north part of Albania. Secondly, I'll go in the south. We have the port of Saranda, which is a very nice, beautiful port, and also the city is beautiful, which is processing mainly passengers. The passengers flows on this port. It's really amazing. There is a difference. The best time that we had on the transporting of passengers was in 2019, but 2022 is 20% more from the tourists coming mainly from Corfu. I'll go for the comprehensive port of Vlora, which is processing goods and passengers, mainly coming from Italy. Now with the new concession agreement that we have, the port of Vlora will be transformed in a touristic port, and the goods, also the passengers, will be transferred in the new port that will be built in Triporti, just 12 kilometers in north of Vlora Bay. I left the port of Durrës in the end because port of Durrës for the moment is one of the most important ports that we have for the moment. From the important because it covers almost 80% of goods and 70% of passengers that are coming in Albania, but also it's one of the most modernized and most innovative ports that we have. The problem with the ports is that ports always need space for purchasing of goods, passengers, containers. And this is something that is missing in Port of Vlora and Port of Durrës. That's why it was the idea of the government to build new ports, and these ports to be transformed into touristic ports. The idea behind this was because also this port, to be in the center of the city, they cause a lot of traffic and also a lot of pollution. So building new modernized ports just in the suburb of the city, it is a very good idea. And I will not go through the new port in Porto Romano because the representative here will speak about that, but I will go very briefly on the inland lake navigation that we have. We have two navigable lakes. The one in Skoda in northern part, which is bordering with Montenegro. We have an agreement, a very old agreement between Skoda and Virpasar, which started to work some years ago. Now it was suspended because of the maintenance of the infrastructure, but we see that the local government, also together with the Montenegrin authorities, now they are trying to reconnect together. So during the touristic season, we will start the navigation between two countries. And also one of the most important lakes that we have is Ohrid. Ohrid, we have an agreement with the Republic of North Macedonia. During the season, there are a lot of ships that are coming in both countries. Now we are in the moment that we are drafting a new agreement, both together, and then we will broaden the angle or the object of the transport. So it was only for touristic purpose. Now it will be more. It will be connection all the year. We also have. I forgot to mention. We have also 3 terminals these are private terminals that are working mainly for processing of oil and their sub-products. We have one in Vlora Bay, which is called PIA, Petrolifera Italo-Albanese, which is very modernized. It's very good. Now they are in plan that they are going to process also the LNG. Probably we can use for the facilities for the alternative fueling of ships in the future. We have 2 in Porto Romano. One is the Romano port and MBA port Porto Romano. The latest is started with a concessional contract in 2015, and lately only for processing of oil. Now they change also for processing of goods. They are working very fast with the construction project, and they have a very modernized and modern technology. This is from my side. This is okay. A very short overview of the maritime infrastructure. I just want to mention that all of these ports, only a port of Vlora, which is part of the TEN-T network, and Port of Durrës, they do comply with certain things, but they are missing. For example, Port of Vlora is a comprehensive port, but it's missing the connection with the railway. But the new port that will be built in Tripoli, they will have the standards according to the TEN-T, and the port of Porto Romano, the new port that will be built, they'll have also the same. The Port of Durrës is part of the core network. It does have a rail connection, except what is missing is the facilities for the alternative fueling of ships. This is all for my part. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Elson. Basically, just to make a very quick resume, I mean, when we speak about maritime transport in Albania, we don't have river transport. We all think about Port of Durrës mostly. But as Elson pointed out, there are other ports which are developing as well. There are a lot of actors, not only state actors, that are active. And until now, we are quite well placed, I would say, regarding the compliance indicators for the new TEN-Ts. And as you pointed out, the new Durrës port in Porto Romano will be full new TEN-T compliant, which makes me helps me to do the perfect transition to Mr. Eric Smith, who will give us a short presentation of how the new port will look like, and I think some ideas of when it may be ready.
Thank you, Adrian. So I'm actually, does it work? Yeah, it works. So I'm actually facing a little bit of a personal challenge here, and I'll explain you why. Because I'm actually on vacation. I did a vacation trip with my girlfriend to Albania over the past 10 days, and then my good friend, Mr. Piero Vengo, asked me, you need to be in this scene presenting Porto Romano, so you need to cut back your vacation and be in a suit with a tie presenting, which I'm happily doing. Now my task of doing this presentation, because it's always difficult to change from holiday mood into working mood, I find that difficult, but some of my colleagues here have made it very easy for me. Matej has already set the scene, so I don't need to set the scene, and the introduction on Porto Romano was already given. So my task is pretty easy. A couple of slides and a short video to give a little bit of spice to the to my presentation. So this is the picture of the shoreline of Porto Romano with the existing facilities in the back, and we is the consortium of Royal Haskoning DHV, Upcons, which is our local partner. We were handed over by the government. We were basically assigned the assignment for preparing a master plan and a detailed design for the first phase development of Porto Romano in an open tender process at the end of last year. And as from the end of last year, we've been working on this project as a team. The project background was already presented before by one of the speakers. It's about the idea to develop a new port north of Durrës, about 8 kilometers north of Durrës. At the site on the right-hand side, there's a picture of the current site with 2 existing facilities, and the idea was to prepare a new port development in the red area. And later on, you will see that the plan that we have developed is to basically integrate all of the existing facilities into an integrated port. On the left side, there's the existing port of Durrës, which has to be vacated. The commercial cargo handling facilities will have to be vacated in order to provide room to develop the touristic port. So most of the commercial cargo handling facilities will be transferred to the new port of Romano. So far we have been, this is the picture in a bit of a different style, the 2 existing facilities on the south, the area assumed for the new Porto Romano, and all of this will then be transferred into an integrated port facility. Where are we in the process? We have prepared a long-term master plan for a long-term development of the facility, and we are about to start, or we have actually started the detailed design of phase 1 of the facility, because the idea is that the port will be developed in phases. You never develop a port of this scale in one go. You do it phase-wise in order also to generate income to finance the next phases of development. It's all about green, developing a green port support, because this is, and that is, I think, what the Prime Minister in one of my presentations to the Prime Minister very well understood. He said, when he heard the presentation, he said, this is going to be the game changer for the country in terms of providing connectivity, in setting an example in terms of greening, and also job creation, gateway function. It's really all these elements are included in this new plan. And in his words, and he is 100% right in my view, he said, this is going to be the game changer for the country, not only for the country, but for the whole region, for the Western Balkan region. So hopefully the logistics now work. Here is a 1.5 minute short video. Short and sweet. The centerpiece of the development will be a modern container terminal. The traffic projections are on the left picture. It's all about the containers. The containers will have to generate the income, and also, I mean, this is the opportunity for the country as well as for the region to really introduce modern container handling capacity. It's all about connectivity, but in addition to that, the project allows a lot of, there's a lot of other features that can be included in the project, including the hydrocarbon opportunities that there are in the country. On the right-hand side, the top picture, a very important feature in the project is to introduce a new naval facility. We're talking to NATO together with the Durrës Port Authority in order for them to support a new NATO base in the port development. We've been talking to the government of Kosovo because an integrated part of the project could be the development of a dry port facility near Pristina. There's a very good road connection already between Durrës and Pristina, which could make a dry port very feasible, including, again, the opportunity to create jobs, additional cargo, and lower right-hand corner, it's we basically dealing with a blank canvas. It's the opportunity for the country to introduce an opportunity for setting a free logistics zone associated to the port. This is the long-term master plan, and as I said before, this is to be developed in phases. The first phase is going to be the two-berth container terminal on the top, plus the naval facility on the top. And this is, well, this is a little bit of a dream picture. I mean, this is the 50, 100 years dream. in a nutshell. I've been in this port industry for 33 years. I started basically in the ports industry in 1989, and I've only been doing ports. So some people say it's very boring only to have been involved in ports globally. It's not boring, and I think this is one of those very interesting, challenging projects which make me, even after 33 years, be very enthusiastic working in this industry, with a very supportive client and a very nice setting. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Eric. But you did not answer my question. When do you think it will be ready? I mean, will it be ready to be part of the core, extended core? What's your foresee?
Well, the easy answer is it's going to be developed in phases. So we start, the idea is to start procuring the first stage of the development works later this year. So then we start the tender procedure. The civil works, the big works, the dredging, marine works, start of construction scheduled for Q2 next year. And then a construction schedule for first phase development. So that is the two-berth container terminal, the breakwaters, the dredging, the naval base, 3 years' time.
All music to our ears, and not only to Albanians, but to all our neighbors. And here I continue with one of our closest neighbors, right to the north, Montenegro. Yes, George, you come from the Ministry of Capital Investment. Your biggest port is Bar, but you have other ports as well. What is going on with the port of Bar? I mean, it's quite advanced. There was some feasibility study that have been prepared or finished.
Yeah.
If you can update it on us, and as well on compliance indicators.
Yeah, first of all, I would like to thank you for the presentation that you had. And if you have some spare money, you can invest it in Port of Bar. We have excellent project about it. So hello to everyone. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you, Adrian. There is a lot of things. There are a lot of things going on after now and after the finishing of this, of my part of this book. Huge things happened. So I will try to update only concerning the Port of Bar and maritime sector. First of all, I'm really proud to say that we had an audit for the Paris Memorandum, and we have a positive opinion that happened in last weeks. So it's really something huge for Montenegro. Yes, I was writing about the one project that was going on, and it was funded by EUIF. It was a project of feasibility study for the multimodality at the Port of Bar. And at the moment, it's in the final stages. We are giving the comments on the draft of the final report. And from the things I heard and things that I saw in the presentation, the project was done brilliantly. So they did an excellent job in presenting all the possible opportunities for Montenegro to develop, and not only for the Port of Bar per se, but in general, and as you said, for not only for us, for our neighbors also, including the potential dry port in Podgorica, which is unbelievable. You know, yeah, there is a significant amount of money needed. Unfortunately, it's 100 million plus. For whichever side we choose, but there is 5 potential solutions, but every one of them is brilliant. Also, at the moment, there is a negotiation of the government of acquiring and buying the Port of Adria as a because it is a significant part of Port of Bar. And it was sold to the Turkish company, so it was a privately owned. But at the moment, there are negotiations, discussions about the state of Montenegro buying that part of port again. So it would be also really significant because it is it's dividing the port of Bar at the middle. So it's a problem. It's a technical problem, and constructural problem, not only the ownership. And also, I can proudly say that with the official numbers, that this year was one of the biggest business years since Port of Bar exists. So the transshipment, the work that they did is like 150% comparing to the best year in last 10 years that we had, which is unbelievable. And it's really, again, something significant, and that gives us the standpoint to find other solution and to discuss and to find the investors for Port of Bar and for increasement of everything. And to be back on the question with the Port of Bar, so yeah, we have, I mean, Montenegro is structured like that. We have a huge coastline, so it's, I mean, huge for the small country. We have a huge coastline. It's over 120 kilometers, and we have two significant ports. It's Port of Bar and Port of Kotor. Port of Bar is port located in Bar, and it's mainly connected to the cargo. And Port of Kotor is in Kotor Bay, and it's mainly like 97% cruising tourism. Both of them significant in their own way. There are smaller ports, marinas that are but they cannot be used in this amount as the mentioned port. And the esteemed colleague mentioned the port of Virpazar, so I would get along with that. It was the first time when Montenegro and Albania signed the agreement. It was in 2004. And it was about the international lake transport. It was Republic of Montenegro still with Republic of Albania. In following period, nothing happened till 2018 when there was like refreshed relations, and when Montenegro signed agreement with the Council of Ministers of Republic of Albania on opening of new border crossing, so both for lake and passenger traffic. It's Klaun Montenegrin side and Zogayan Albanian side, and all of that, like it was a base for the project that was founded also by Trilateral. So Italy, Albania, Montenegro, and it's Salmonit MTC. That project was based on the main design that was done in 2005, like after the signing of the original agreement between two countries. And for my opinion, it had a good idea, but not so many possibilities for the execution, because unfortunately, a river of Bojana that will connect seaside and lake, it's not proper for sailing anymore, so for ships. And also Skadar Lake is a national park, and it's treated as such in Montenegro. So at the moment, the project is on pause till we settle with the Ministry of Ecology. And I mean, it's a complicated name of the ministry. I can never remember all their roles, but they are for it to give us all the licenses and permits and to decide whether this place that was planned for a port to be is suitable or not. Is it a first zone, second zone of the national park as such? So unfortunately, we are on a break when it comes to it. Adrian, did I answer your question properly?
Yes, basically by saying that you have a lot of coast, but also a lot of mountains, which make this connection from the coast to the hinterland quite difficult. That you have been investing a lot of money in connecting with your neighbors, with Serbia to the north, but also with Albania to the south. I think, and that you would like the investors, if they have some money left from the investment in the new Durrës Porto Romano, to come and spend it in Montenegro. This was it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. There will be space afterwards for question and answers. But now we'll just do a short presentation of what was presented into this very nice book. Actually, it will be published in the Konrad Adenauer website very soon. Claudia, when would you have it online so that very soon, within this week? Yes. Okay, perfect. So we didn't print a lot because we respect the Green Deal and we want the trees. So, but it can be online. But now from Montenegro, we are going to another maritime nation, which is none other than Bosnia and Herzegovina. Because when we talk about Bosnia and Herzegovina, we talk about Sava River, yes, but they have also Neum. And there are some very interesting development plans in there, but the most important, at least in the contribution that our very dear colleague Dario Buzic from Ministry of Communication and Transport in Sarajevo mentioned in the study, they are doing some very important work in the Sava River, basically in the link, but also he'll mention, Dario, do you hear me? Can we have Dario online? Some of the developments in the very nice coast of Neum and the Gradiška developments. Hi, here you are. You hear me? You hear us?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to greet all of you present here today, and I'm sorry that I couldn't come, but also I would like to say that it's a great opportunity for me to participate in this event. As you already heard, my name is Dario Buzic from the Ministry of Communications and Transport of Bosnia and Herzegovina. For the purpose of participation in the Blue Connectivity project of Konrad Adenauer, I have been asked to prepare material about Bosnia and Herzegovina regarding the inland waterways and seaports. As you already know, the natural border of Bosnia and Herzegovina on the north is the Sava River, with a length of 337 kilometers. Sava River represents the border between Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia in 32 kilometers, and between Bosnia and Herzegovina and Croatia, Sava is the border for another 305 kilometers. There are 3 river ports on the territory of Bosnia and Herzegovina on the Sava. In fact, there are 2 ports, real ports, Brčko and Šamac, and one unusual type of port in Bosanski Brod, which is facility used for transshipment of liquid cargo from the nearby refinery. First 2 of them, Brčko and Šamac, are the river ports on the core network with the connections to main railway network. That is competitive advantage of these ports. At this moment, on 3 parts of the river Sava, with a length of 20, 25, and one more with 225 kilometers, Sava River has the 3rd class of navigability. As the international inland waterway, Sava River needs to be at least 4th class of navigability. The main problem for this waterway is the fact that 27 years after the war destructions, we are still in the process of waiting for the World Bank and EBRD grant for demining of the right river bank of the River Sava. And this represents the preconditions for starting of process of serious rehabilitations of Sava River waterway. After we rehabilitate Sava River inland waterway, we can expect that 2 ports in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Brčko and Šamac, together with the port Slavonski Brod in Croatia, also with the connection to the main railway network, will become significant intermodal hub in this part of Europe. After improvement of railway corridor 5C to the south to port of Ploče in Adriatic Sea in Croatia, we can expect increasing of transport volume from the Adriatic Sea to the north of Europe through the multimodal links between railway and Sava River inland waterway. From the other side, on the south of Bosnia and Herzegovina, as you already mentioned, Ardian, Bosnia and Herzegovina has access to Adriatic Sea only in place called Neum. There is no port or marina in this town because of the proximity of port of Ploče. Actually, this Neum Bay is a small coastal area with 26 kilometers of coastline and only 16 kilometers of blue border. At the end, as you can see from my very short presentation, Bosnia and Herzegovina has many issues with the infrastructure of inland waterways, but we have a huge potential for development of this green mode of transport. The main problem is that we don't have a clear strategic vision what we need to achieve in this field, especially when we consider the fact that in 4 responsible ministries on the state level and the entity ministries, there is only a few people who are working on this matter. If we had a clear strategy for development of this green mode of transport, we could start working on preparing the state law on maritime and inland waterway transport. This law could be the breaking point for the more serious approach to development of this mode of transport in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Otherwise, Sava River inland waterway will be waiting for qualitative rehabilitation for many years, and who knows how long it will take for the demining of the right river bank of the Sava River. Thank you for your attention. If you have some question, I will be free to answer you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dario. It is, as you've mentioned, written also in the publication. I mean, the strategic vision, as you say, but also the capacity, human capacity of the institutions in charge may constitute one of the challenges. Maybe we can come up later on those issues during the questions and answers, because these are features that are not only specific to Bosnia, but they are also affect other countries of the Balkans. So please stay online with us. We'll come back with questions upon you. And meanwhile, if I may profit, if you have questions or, I don't know, clarification, additional information that you'd like to ask, please note it and let us know, and we will give you space during the question and answers. And now, I have the pleasure of giving the floor to Ms. Anna Blaževska from Estima, and I would say an old collaborator or partner of Tirana Connectivity Forum, to talk about maritime or waterborne connectivity, sorry, not maritime, waterborne connectivity in North Macedonia. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ardian. It's always a pleasure to be in Tirana for the Tirana Connectivity Forum. And if you wonder why I'm on the panel, thank you also for the clarification. So North Macedonia is not a maritime nation. We are a landlocked country with no fancy ports, no long coastline. Apparently the length of the coastline has been shrinking as we go along. We have Albania, Montenegro, Bosnia, and then it's 0 kilometers in our case. But I'm here to talk about inland waterways and not the prospects, the potential in North Macedonia, but also to start talking about the challenges that authorities are facing, not only in North Macedonia, but I suppose in the other countries in the region as well. So I will go to the reasons and the challenges after introducing the 2 projects that the analysis develops. One of them was already mentioned by Mr. Tana, who talked about the Ohrid Lake and the potential to establish an international line from the city of Ohrid to the city of Pogradec in Albania. And that is something that existed until 1948. So there was a ship crossing the Ohrid Lake, but between 1948 and 1989, this idea and this opportunity somehow got lost. And it was not until 1989 that this idea reappeared on the agenda of the local authorities. So we mentioned that there are many different stakeholders involved in this process. In this case, it was not that much the national authorities, but the local authorities that started pushing forward the idea of reconnecting the two cities. And in 2014, so 25 years after the reappearance of the idea, it became reality. So there was a ship line between Ohrid and Pogradec, but unfortunately it lasted for only 3 years and then it was suspended because of lack of economic viability and lack of interest. The line was only operational for transport of tourists who wanted to see both countries during their stay in the region, and it was not operational for the transport of goods or any other more substantial operations. But as I mentioned, local authorities are not giving up on this idea. And in 2021, thanks to a project, a cross-border cooperation project, the NIPA-2, or the Instrument for Pre-Accession, the city of Struga and the city of Pogradec managed to push forward once again the idea. They received a €2 million project to build the ports in Struga, in Pogradec, and to re-establish this line using solar-powered ships. And this is something that is very important. Why? Because the Lake of Ohrid, as many of you know, is a UNESCO protected heritage. So it will be not possible to have more substantial transport operations, which will disregard this fact, because the status of UNESCO protected heritage site is actually the basis for the development of tourism in the region, and the tourism is also the basis of the local economy. The second project that I looked into for the purpose of the analysis is a mega project that I'm also sure you are familiar with. It's the Danube-Morava-Vardar Canal, which is supposed to establish a waterborne connection to the Aegean Sea, or between the Aegean and the North Sea. And it's a project with also a very long tradition of coming back and forth on the agenda. There have been numerous feasibility studies, which especially in the past proved the technical feasibility and the economic justification of the project. So it's more than 1 century old. However, as time goes by, the project seems to be even less and less viable. Why? First and foremost, due to the cost. So the North Macedonia section is the only non-navigable link in this whole canal, but it is in the length of, according to different studies, between 206 and 275 kilometers. And the project seems to be very challenging, with 21 cascade dams and 4 ship lifts that are supposed to be built. The riverbed is supposed to be enlarged to reach the width of between 28 and 43 meters. And there is also the issue of the depth, with 4 meters of depth. The idea of this waterway is at the bare minimum for it to be to allow cargo ships of up to 1,350 tons to go by. And then there is the issue of the cost. According to different studies, the costs are estimated between 8 and 17 billion euros. and it should take between 13 and 30 years for the construction to take place. The last feasibility study was done by the Chinese Gezhouba construction group because the project is a part of the Belt and Road Initiative and the Chinese plans for the regional connectivity. However, even with their optimistic scenario, it would take between 5 and 7 years and around 12 billion euros to construct the canal section crossing North Macedonia. And in this case, there are also a number of challenges. For instance, the biggest challenges would be the climate change, and with the droughts and increasingly long drought periods, the water flow in the Vardar River during the summer drops to 5 meters cubed, which is insufficient for big cargo ships to cross by. The construction of the canal would imply that portions of the territory on both sides of the river would need to be flooded. That would mean the loss of agricultural land, the relocation of highway and railway links, and also even 3 settlements, 3 villages would need to be relocated. And the riverbed in several of the cities, namely Skopje, but also Kumanovo and Veles, has been urbanized to the point that there will be a need to construct circumventing canals around these cities, which further complicates the situation. So we are all aware of the advantages of having these inland waterways, but to sum up, I will just repeat the main challenges that will need to be addressed. First of all, we have the environmental challenge in both projects, the UNESCO status, the number of environmental activities and the damage that may be caused with the Vardar-Morava canal. Then there is the climate change and the very issue of navigability of this canal. And finally, the economic sustainability of both projects. However, I think that it is good to have them in mind, especially in light of the broader geopolitical and security implications, because the Ohrid Lake would be naturally a part of the Corridor VIII, especially. And then there could be some long-term reflections about the inclusion of these projects in future multimodal strategies for the region. I would stop here. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. And probably now, I guess that I mean, it was more or less clear why North Macedonia is in the waterborne transport, because we want to bring up the people factor. I mean, the lake transport, it's not, I don't know the reason, but it's not part of the waterborne strategy, or it's not visible in the EU. We have 2 beautiful lakes in the Balkans, it's the Shkodra Lake and the Ohrid Lake. So why not? I mean, it connects people. We need to look at it very carefully. The second one, it's the role that local authorities have in the development of ports. The third one, it's the geostrategic and the huge investments that are needed and that need to be met. And I'm grateful that you brought in the Belt and Road. I mean, the part that the Vardar Valley is in the Belt and Road initiative, which makes me a little bit jump on my agenda and follow the Vardar Valley down to Greece and give the floor to Mr. Tsokopoulos to mention talk about 2 big ports, which are Balkan ports, not only Greek ports, but also continental ports of Piraeus and Thessaloniki. Piraeus has done a tremendous progress during the last years, but Thessaloniki is there as well. In your presentation in the book, there was a very interesting argument apart those 2 ports. I mean, the fact that the development of Piraeus and Thessaloniki has also spurred the consideration or the construction of dry ports further up north. So I will give, sorry, Božidar, I mean, in the panel it is you, but we can say that we leave the sweets for the end and all these kind of things. And Vladimir. So, George, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ardian. I want to sincerely thank you, your institute, and also Konrad Adenauer Stiftung for supporting this event, and also for the publication that is impressive and containing contributions from different actors of the region. And actually, it's a great pleasure to be here in Dares. I don't know if you are aware of this, but this is a city called Pidamnus in the narration of the Peloponnesian War by Thucydides, and it is considered as the place where the then international relations were formed by the rivalry between Sparta and Athens. So it's a great pleasure to be here and to learn also from history. Perhaps several of you might wonder why Greece could be an interesting case for this event, and also for the book, apart from the words that Ardian just said. And I would like to say that the country presents a very important case study from where we can draw important lessons from different perspectives and prisms. At first, the country is a member state of both the European Union and NATO, while investments in ports have taken place in a very difficult period for the Greek economy, meaning that several, if not all, of the privatizations which were implemented during the previous years were actually an obligation for Greece in order to carry out the necessary bailout privatizations and reforms. And the third important element, why in my opinion Greece offers an interesting case study, is the fact that investments in ports offer us the opportunity to observe the stance of critical geopolitical actors, as long as the international environment is being adjusted to the new circumstances. And I mainly refer to the ongoing competition between the United States and China, and obviously the war in Ukraine. So, describing the situation in Greece, we need at first to focus on the port of Piraeus, which has the lion's share in the investments in ports in the country. And in that regard, once again, I consider the development of the Piraeus port by a Chinese company, COSCO Shipping, since 2008 and 2009, a very interesting case study itself, because it offers us, from a European perspective, lessons about the extent to which relations with China, economic relations with China, can be managed, and up to what extent the investment in the Piraeus port can somehow contribute towards an understanding between the West and the East, especially in the current period of ongoing tensions. So what happened in the port of Piraeus was that the Chinese company entered the port in 2008 and 2009. It started to invest, and by investing, I mean to either develop existing piers or construct additional ones, which have finally pushed the port into the international rankings of both world ports and Mediterranean ports in very good positions. And since 2015 and 16, Greece was obliged by its international creditors to complete an additional privatization in the Piraeus port. So it had to sell the majority stake of the Piraeus Port Authority to an international company that would be interested in buying this majority stake. And the Chinese company, in very difficult times for the Greek economy, was the only one that submitted an offer and managed to take the control of the Piraeus Port Authority for the coming years. And I want to insist on this because, once again, it offers us some lessons, because as far as I know, it is the only case in Europe where a Chinese company controls the majority stake of a port authority, not just the minority stake. Against this backdrop, the Chinese company continued its investments, and accordingly, and subsequently the Piraeus port gained further places in international rankings. And China considers it as a critical part in the implementation of the Belt and Road Initiative, which from a Chinese perspective continues through Piraeus and goes to the Balkans via railworks, in particular to North Macedonia, Serbia, and then Hungary. This connectivity that the Chinese are attempting to forge has been recently encountered with several problems, not only from a geopolitical perspective, but also from a local perspective in Piraeus, due to the fact that the Chinese are implementing a very big master plan in the Piraeus port, meaning that they want to do additional investments, and sometimes impressive investments, useful as they are for the national economy of Greece, cause tensions for the local communities. So once again, by looking at how the Chinese company is negotiating with both the Greek government and local authorities, we can, from a European prism, draw important lessons about how this business plan is being implemented, stuck, or up to what extent it will continue. Three additional parameters which need to be taken into account. The first is the fact that the pandemic has impacted on some of the plans of the Chinese company to develop the port, because, for example, one of the agreements between COSCO, the Chinese company, and the Greek government is about the development of the cruise sector in the port. But as you can all imagine, during the pandemic, there were no tourists coming, so this impacted on the numbers. And once again, the further implementation of the master plan and the solutions that are being currently on the agenda is have to be scrutinized and analyzed regarding future progress and the future implementation of the port itself. And the third parameter is the continuation of the war in Ukraine, which is creating both challenges and opportunities for the Chinese company in the port. I'm not prepared to make any speculation about this because I don't have any evidence or data. There are different schools of thought. On the one hand, perhaps the port of Piraeus can be regarded as an investment that can play a role in the interest of trade, of the free flow of trade to be guaranteed in difficult and unstable times. At the same time, the war that is going on is also creating problems for the Chinese company through connectivity via the Black Sea. So it's a double-edged sword, and I wouldn't like to speculate, just to observe the situation day by day. The second example of investments in port investments in Greece is that of the port of Thessaloniki that Ardian correctly mentioned before, which is much smaller in terms of number in comparison to the port of Piraeus. The privatization was completed in 2019, led by a consortium where the majority stake belongs to the hands of a Greek-Russian billionaire. And once again, this is creating some new concerns, taking into account the new geopolitical environment. As far as I know, there is no case or no discussion about the extent to which sanctions are affecting the operation of the port, which is continuing very smoothly and harmoniously despite the ongoing invasion in Ukraine. And a critical proof of the situation that the situation is progressing smoothly is the fact that the Thessaloniki Port Authority is contributing and it is leading to investments in dry port, in particular in Bulgaria, around the Sofia city, and possibly in the future in Serbia. And I would like to finish my presentation with a third investment that it's not part of the publication, at least it's not mentioned explicitly, because at the time when we're working closely with Ardian, whom I need to congratulate again for presenting this work. The privatization had not been made. This is relevant to the port of Alexandroupolis, which is near the border of Greece with Turkey and Bulgaria, towards the northeastern part of the country. This port is significant for the United States because in the context of the strengthening of the defense relationship between the two countries, the Americans are helping the supply of military equipment of Ukraine through this port. And you can understand that in the framework of NATO policy, especially after the 24th of February, this port is becoming a catalyst for the implementation of the new strategy. But I don't want to focus necessarily on this aspect. Right now, I want to focus on the aspect of the commercial part of this port of Alexandroupolis. The tender is going on, and the recent results that were announced last Thursday or Friday suggest that there are two consortia led by American companies that will finally win the tender. So irrespective of who the winner will be, the result will be that this port will be in the hands of an American company. And this leads me to the final conclusion, which is that a country like Greece has quite successfully managed to cooperate with the Chinese as far as the port of Piraeus is concerned, by sticking obviously to its pro-West orientation, especially in difficult geopolitical times. So the country itself once again presents a very, very important case study up to what extent different priorities, economic and geopolitical ones, can go together, and whether it is possible for the long term.
And this is exactly one of our main reasons why we insisted to have Greece in this study, just to bring in the crucial importance of the geopolitical factors. If only to resume it, basically your biggest ports are owned by the Chinese, by the Russians, and now by the Americans. Very soon, we'll probably have the Indians as well, if Patra decides to privatize. No, I'm just pushing. But this is very, very important, and this shows how important ports are, not only for the economy, not only for trade, but also for projecting power and also values. I liked a lot, and this is one of the parts that I like the most in your presentation, is that ports are there to better understand each other. I mean, how the other works, and also the problems that you mentioned, or the challenges that the investors had in interaction with the government or with the local citizen. I will continue through the Dardanelles Strait to the Black Sea, to the port of Varna, and give the floor to our colleague Božidar Jankov from Sofia to talk about this artery, one of the main arteries that nourishes this part of Europe, the Danube River, but also the port of the Black Sea. I mean, all those developments, the war in Ukraine, climate change. I mean, you have suffered from it. Danube has suffered as well. And also what I was impressed in your study is the degree of harmony, I would say, in cooperating with the Romanian part or with cross borders. I mean, rivers that bring people together, not only the bridges, but rivers. I mean, this is a very beautiful fab. So, Božidar, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. My name is Božidar Jankov. I'm working for Executive Agency Exploration and Maintenance of the Danube River, which headquarters are situated on the biggest city on the river Danube, Russe. I'm coming from Russe through North Macedonia, through almost all of Albania to come here in Durrës. First of all, thank you, Adrian, for the opportunity and for the chance to be part of this research, this paper. And it's my first time to Albania, and thank you for also, as it was mentioned before, ports are the places to meet people. I'm afraid I know none of you, but today I'll make new friends, I'm sure. So thanks for having me here. As it comes to the Danube, you know, the strategic role of the river, which connects Rotterdam port on the North Sea with Constanza port on the Black Sea. And as most of you most probably know from the Iron Gates facility downstream to the delta, Danube is a free-flowing river with no significant engineering measures and interventions to help the navigability. In this respect, and having in regard the climate changes and the recent developments, for example, this year we had almost hit the historical record of low waters in Russia. In July, sorry, we had really big problems with the navigability on the Danube, especially with the draft of the vessels, and the parameters of the fairway and so on. So in this respect, we traditionally work together with our Romanian friends and colleagues. And we developed a project called Fast Danube, which is funded under the Connecting Europe facility. This is a feasibility study to establish a sustainable solution to improve the navigational conditions on the common stretch of the Danube between Bulgaria and Romania, namely from kilometer 845 to 374, which is about 500 kilometers stretch of the river, being one of the main obstacles, one of the main bottlenecks for navigation on the Danube. So currently we're developing these engineering measures. The consultant created some modeling, some, they did some really detailed surveys and so on. And hopefully next year, in the fall next year, we'll have the project filed to apply for funding under the third call of Connecting Europe to funding. As it comes to the Black Sea, there are some ideas for future development of Varna and Burgas ports. Varna port, they did some dredging works on deepening of the main channel, Channel 1, which goes deep inside of the Varna Lake. And they have also ideas to extension the quay wall. For Burgas, also there are some ideas for extension of the quays of the quay with one more mooring place. That's in brief. For Ukraine, recently they had some ideas to develop this either by rail or by barges on the Danube, this new solidarity lane from Romania to Bulgaria to Alexandroupolis port to export especially grain from Ukraine, but this is just an idea at that time.
Thank you, Božidar, very much. I'd like to come back afterwards because you mentioned the projects or the EU funding, and I'd like to have your opinion how important it is for improving infrastructure, the EU funding. As you know, Western Balkans 6 do not have access to all the funding that you have. So I think it would be a very interesting point of learning from, as George mentioned it. And now we will close with Serbia, the biggest country in the Balkans, and the country that has 3 navigable rivers, Tisza, Sava, and Danube. You do not have sea, but when you see the Danube, I mean, it's very, very big. And basically, one of the things that I noticed during the preparation of the study was that not only Serbia is working in fulfilling the, well, I wouldn't say compliance indicators because they are ad hoc. I mean, from the beginning as core ports in the new TEN-T regulation, but you also are bringing new ports as well. You are trying to promote new ports that are not in the current map. And this is something that I believe would be very interesting for the rest of the participants in here to see a little bit your work. What are you doing? I mean, what are the keys of success, and what can you exchange with the other colleagues in here? Thank you, Vladimir.
Yeah. Thank you, Adrian, very much. First of all, let me say that I'm really pleased to be here and for being able to contribute to the project that was funded by the foundation. So I was invited to prepare a chapter related to infrastructure development of inland waterway transport in Serbia, and I was really, pleased to be able to do that. And as someone coming from academia and as a professor at the University of Belgrade Department for Waterborne Transport, I'm somehow expected to give long speeches, but don't worry, I will not follow that in this case. Even though my presentation is quite large, it has more than 20-something slides, but of course I will try to be as short as possible. So is there a pointer so I can use it? Because in my presentation there are some very nice maps I would like to show and to. Thank you very much. So this is a network of inland waterways in Serbia. As you can see, as Adrian said, we are a landlocked country, but our network of inland waterways, particularly in the northern part of Serbia, is very big and let's say, speaking about numbers. So as you can see, we do have, and Adrian was also talking about that, we do have Danube River, Sava River, Tisza River, but also there is a canal network, Danube, which is more than 650 kilometers long. And in total, there is also other navigable rivers in Serbia, but they are of less importance, like Begej, Tamiš, even Morava is to a certain extent navigable. And let's say in total more than 1,600 kilometers of navigable rivers in Serbia we do have. So comparing to some European numbers related to comparing to European network of inland waterways, so around 5 to 6% of the European inland waterway network belongs to Serbia. So this is European inland waterway network excluding Russia, of course. So this is our position. At the moment, according to this indicative extension of TEN-T network to Western Balkans, we do have 3 navigable rivers in Serbia, which to a certain extent belongs to Serbia, of course, which are part of the core network. So this is Danube, Sava, and Tisza River. You can see some data about these rivers. And Danube River is not just a river that is important that has its importance for the economical development of its hinterland. But one interesting fact is that Danube runs through 10 countries and it is navigable in all those countries. So it is the only river of the world which has such characteristic. 588 kilometers of the Danube belongs to Serbia. What Matej was talking this morning about, and Božidar also, so we do have these issues with low water levels, and it has impacts on, of course, on the quantity of cargo which is being transported on ships. So therefore, due to these low water levels, we do have to impose some limitations on the draft, some limitations on the quantity of cargo on board ships, and it creates, of course, higher transport costs and reduces the competitive position of the inland waterway transport comparing to rail and road transport. If we are talking about Serbia's position related to to Danube waterway transport, we also suffer from the same these consequences, but also we do have some issues which are related to the quantity and structure of cargoes, which is usually transported on inland waterways in Serbia, on Danube at all. So, for example, most of the cargoes transported on Danube belongs to bulk types of to liquid cargoes, so it doesn't go in favor for development of some container transportation, for example. One of the really important issues related to Danube transportation is also these low numbers of available staff, not just on board ships, but also staff which is in charge of operating and maintaining inland waterways. So we have to deal with that in the future. Sava River runs through 4 countries. We have already heard some presentation about and facts about Sava River. In Serbia, we do have mostly, let's say that except for this, for 20-25 kilometers, other parts of the other sections on the river belongs to waterway class 4 or higher. So this problematic sector belongs to waterway class 3, and it is not what is in accordance with compliance indicators and compliance standard of TNT regulation. So so at the moment we are trying to improve navigation conditions on the Sava River, and it is particularly related at this moment as there is an ongoing project related to the improving of navigational conditions on the Sava River, or on the stretch of the Sava River near the mouth of River Drina. So at the moment, River Sava receives a lot of sediments from River Drina, and it creates a lot of morphological instabilities. So it impacts river width and river depth. So it creates a lot of navigational difficulties. So at the moment, the project is ongoing, and maybe you have heard about Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. They recently signed an agreement which should, let's say, regulate it. The purpose of that agreement is to regulate this section of the river. So this is data about cargo transshipment in Sava River ports in the Republic of Serbia. So as you can see, these are data only related to port of Šabac and port of Sremska Mitrovica is the biggest port on the Serbian part of Sava River. But according to Sava Commission data, which I got, they are also, and our port governance agency data, so there are also other transshipment points on the Sava, on the ports at the Sava River, and at those ports, throughput of those ports is over 2 million tons, but it is mostly related to gravel, to stones, to liquid cargoes. So this type of bulk and liquid cargoes. Tisa River runs through 5 countries, so Ukraine, Slovakia, Romania, Hungary, and 164 kilometers runs through Serbia. One of the greatest obstacles for navigation on the Tisa River is Lok, which is located near Novi Bečej. It is on the 63 kilometers from the confluence of Tisa River to the Danube. It allows only passage of ships which are around 1,000 tons of capacity. On the other side, we do, except Port of Senta, we do not have a network of ports developed on Tisa River. Type of quantities and types of cargo transport on the Tisa River is quite similar to other inland waterways in Serbia. So we are talking mainly about stones, gravels, and oil, of course, agricultural products, but mostly we are talking about gravel. Most of the types of transportation on Tisa River belongs to this one-way transport. So it means there are no return cargoes. It means that barges are moving empty, and issues with staff, as I have already explained. According to TNT regulations, and so these are requirements or standards which have to be fulfilled. So each country should ensure these standards. So waterways should be at least of class 4 with a draft of 2.5 meters, height and the bridges 5.25, and there should be a river information system available at the rivers. As you can see here on this slide, Serbia is doing pretty well in this sense. So there at Tisa River, we do not have river information services. And as I said, that sections on the Sava River is below this standard, so around 30 kilometers of Sava in Serbia. If you are talking about ports, 2 Serbian ports belong to the core network of TNT network, and these are Belgrade and Novi Sad. And these are some facts about these ports. As you can see, even Port of Belgrade belongs to the core network, even though according to the transshipment it is not even in the first 5 of Serbian ports at the moment, let's say. So you can see owner of the land in these ports is of course the country, but port operators in Port of Belgrade, we do have one company, it's Port of Belgrade. In Port of Novi Sad, we do have a DP world famous port operator, and the oil company of Serbia operating oil terminal. So these are the data about transshipment in Port of Novi Sad, and these are related only to water transshipment, let's say. So it means a cargo arriving by ships or leaving the port by ships. So it's not like linked with rail or road connections. Port of Belgrade, as well, as you can see, as I said, Port of Smederevo, Port Novi Sad, Belgrade, Port of Pančevo, and Port of Bogojevo, have Port of Prahovo have higher throughput rates. According to these indicators, we are also doing pretty well. As you can see, all in we fulfill all these standards, except that our ports do not provide clean fuels in their capacities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. So thank you very much to all of you for your presentations. More details. I mean, I kindly asked our esteemed panelists in here to keep the interventions short, because all the data is in the book, which will be online, but also there are copies here. But now there are, I have my questions, but there is now some space, some time for any question that you may have on different issues, on technical issues, management, good governance of ports, geopolitical connectivity. Yes, Yanis. If you can introduce yourself, it would be great.
I'm Ioannis Armakolas, Senior Research Fellow at ELIAMEP, and in Athens, and Professor in the University of Macedonia. It's a geopolitical question, I'm sorry, Adrian. For George, my colleague at ELIAMEP, would the COSCO investment have been possible nowadays by China, or a Russian businessman taking over the second biggest port in Greece? In other words, somehow it's very strange that our partners The Americans and no one from Europe, of course, have only one of the smaller commercial ports in Greece, and the biggest ports controlled by one way or another by what are today geopolitical competitors or enemies. So for many years, it seems to me that the West, especially in Greece, is this crucial real estate in Eastern Mediterranean was geopolitically sleepwalking. Would you agree with me?
Thank you. Well, geopolitically, come there. A second question. Let's do a round. Is there any other question? Yes.
Thank you. My name is Osman Metal. I come from Durrës University. So first of all, I'd like to thank all the organizers, Mr. Ardian, Port Director Piero, Christian for his wonderful setting up of the panorama, and all the panelists for giving us a clear picture of the connectivity in the, let's say, maritime sector. Of course, we are from Durrës, and our main, let's say, headache is Durrës Port. And of course, it's not a headache, it's our pride, as a matter of fact, because it's been here for, the entire time. So since the earliest ages, Durrës Port was here. Durrës and the city, they have lived together, they have developed together. So we're always, let's say, living together, and we are concerned about, of course, future developments of this port. We were introduced with a wonderful project prepared by Royal Husbanding. I would say it's really a very good project, very futuristic, I would say. But I got one question. In your presentation, I just saw that you said the assumed area where the port is going to be built is in that area. I mean, the red rectangle that you showed to us. What does it mean, the assumed area? Does it mean that there has been no study for identifying the place where the port is going to be built? And I was very amazed about the traffic forecast figures. So 2 million TEUs, 50 million tons of cargo, 1 million of passengers. Very proud of that, because I would love to have such a big port. But actually, if we see the figures that are coming to this region, for example, now actually there are about 600 or 650,000 TEUs coming from the southern part of the maritime area. So Thessaloniki, Durrës, and Port of Bar, all of them are not bringing more than 650,000 TEUs in the region. So do you think that the figures that we have are very, very optimistic? Of course, we are living in a time with a lot of problems, and we need to be optimistic. But is that very, very, let's say, realistic on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Metala. We have two questions. A third question. I mean, a question about geopolitics, question about basic assumptions when investing so much in a new port. Third question. My third question will be to all of you. Where to find the money for the investment? So George first, and afterwards Eric, you're here.
Thank you very much for the question, Yannis. And actually, the answer goes together with the potential answer to Ardian's question, where to find the money. So this has been one of the most important advantages of the Chinese during the European debt crisis, not only in Greece, but beyond. So the big question was that at critical junctures, especially for the national economy of Greece, where we focus on today, the Chinese company was the only one submitting offers to buy the majority stake in the Piraeus Port Authority. And what makes the situation even more problematic is the fact that when the Chinese are investing, they are signing contracts which are lasting for decades. So the bizarre thing is this, that the investment started under completely different circumstances, with politicians, especially at the European Union, having at that time not the ability to project how the situation could evolve in the long term. And we have to find right now a symbiosis with the Chinese, because the Chinese will be with us until 2055 or something like this. So this is the most difficult and tricky thing. But this requires an answer and a policy from the European point of view and from the European side, because the investment, especially in the port of Piraeus, is very successful in terms of numbers. But I agree with you. And we have the ability as scholars to judge a situation with delay of 7 years when the privatization took place in 2015, 2016. The politicians need to have a different vision. And in my opinion, they failed in this case.
Thank you, George. It's funny how those words, they are associated often, you know, these times. Politicians fail. Okay.
I was actually pleased that I was not required to answer this political question, because it's a rather difficult one and a rather sensitive one. I mean, this is what you see in the international ports industry. I've been working, for example, in the port of Haifa in Israel for 20 years. And that's where you now also see it's the base of the Israeli Navy. It's the home base of the American Fifth Fleet with the aircraft carrier. They've now given the concession for the new container terminal that we developed to the Chinese, the Shanghai International Port Company, Shanghai International Port Group, SIPG. And the Port Authority has now been privatized, and the arch rivals of the Chinese, that's the Indians, they have won the concession, they have won the bid for the Port Authority shares. So then I think the Costco case in Piraeus is even small money if you compare that to the thing happening in that place. Coming back to the easier question technically, back to technical terms. Two very good questions. First, about the location. I mean, the picture that I showed you was part of our terms of reference, but what we've actually done or recommended is that, okay, the location in itself, the bay was a given. So we were not allowed to look outside the bay. The bay was given, and I think it is a good location because it's close to the main heartland of the main industrial heartland of Albania. So in fact, the location is, I think, a proper choice. Our recommendation is not to develop a port next and separate from the two existing locations, but to integrate all of it in one. And I know there are all sorts of political issues, commercial issues, but for the country, it would be the proper thing to integrate. It's the opportunity for the country to develop one integrated commercial center. And that's what we have recommended. Yeah, so the port will never accommodate the largest vessels in the fleet. I mean, that is not realistic, because the big vessels, the mega container carriers will not touch upon Durrës. But it's up to, let's say, 5,000-6,000 TEU is reasonable. Now, coming back to your other good question about the traffic figures, because of course, 2 million is not realistic. 2 million is a dream for the 100 years. The picture, and maybe I didn't explain that well enough. We we look into the 2050 development, the first phase development, phase one. And then, I mean, there is at the moment 150,000 TEU captive cargo that is guaranteed cargo. Our predictions for, let's say, 2045, 2050 are 500, 600,000 TEU. And that is the sort of volume that is good for a two-berth facility. And that is also the sort of volume that we think will be of interest to a modern container terminal operator. And there are a number, 10 approximately around the world. I think that 500,000-600,000 is of commercial interest to them. 150,000 not, but 500,000-600,000 is, let's say, the opportunity for the first phase development. The picture that I showed was the dream, and it only shows that there is further potential after 50 years, after 30 years.
Arjan, if I might, join Eric into responding very quickly, because especially for the Albanian audience, I think it's important. What Professor Metala rightly pointed out as the assumed area. Professor, you've been in positions in the past, involved also in the port, in political also positions. And I think that we both agree that in the past, port affairs in Albania have been run, to say the least, in a very not structured way. And we've ended up building terminals, issuing concessions, but with no integrated effort of master planning and design. So what we're doing together with Royal Haskoning is basically agreeing that for the foreseeable future, we will be needing approximately 500 hectares of land, where the future of that land will be port and logistic related activities. Okay, so I think we've set that into stone, so to speak, and we are taking the appropriate measures for the Port Authority to become landowner of that land now. So that was my first remark. Regarding the traffic forecast, you're absolutely right. 2 million TEUs, it's something that is very, very far in the future. But I think that if we consider what's going on in the broader Adriatic Ionian region, I think it's fair to say that if Durrës has the proper intermodal connections, we can safely cater to the needs of Kosovo, North Macedonia, why not a little bit also of Greece. And if we do that properly, then you get to that market forecast of 500,000 TEUs. Of course, we'll need decades to get there, but so long as we provide the infrastructure to keep it upwards, I think that's the right thing to do. And the third comment I would like to make, basically what we're trying to achieve with the Porto Romano project and the tourism development here, it's very similar to what the Port of Tallinn is doing as we speak. And essentially what they're doing is that they're evolving from a cargo port to a logistic port, and they're evolving from a single port authority with one basin to a port authority with multiple facilities. And this is what's happening in Albania as well. So we'll have basically, and I think this is good news for Durrës as well, we'll have one port authority with 2 ports basically. So this is what I wanted to underline, because I think it really clarifies a lot of the ongoing debate, also politically speaking, but also economically. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Piro.
Gjatë pushimit dregës.
I think I'm using and abusing the fact that I'm the moderator and the last obstacle between you and lunch. So, which is waiting outside. So basically, I will hold the microphone and give it to each of you, but I will hold it for you to have last sentence or comment or questions, or I don't know, but just say something. Or I will also help you with a question which I have for one of you. For example, for you is, would it be possible for Bulgaria to do all those investments without EU cohesion funds?
It will be very, very difficult.
Thank you. So we need to profit from cohesion funds. When Bar Port, I mean, how realistic is for Bar Port to be in the core network in the new methodology?
It is. If we invest what is planned due to the studies that we performed, it is really optimistic about it.
Voilà, Lebo, excellent news. Climate change, no, cybersecurity. It's your passion. I will not ask you about it because we'll finish tomorrow. But any last comment?
I really would like to thank you for the opportunity for bringing us here. Maritime infrastructure and maritime transport is developing very fast, and this kind of activities gives the proper intention. So in the Ministry of Infrastructure and Energy is giving a proper attention to the maritime transport and also for improvement in infrastructure. So,
thank you, Elson. Anna, how realistic is doing a conference on waterborne connectivity in Skopje?
I think it's still in the level of wishful thinking, but let's stay optimistic.
Ohrid then. Ohrid.
That's much more plausible.
Thank you. Vladimir, you are the professor. You make the conclusions.
Just one thing that I forgot to say, that DP World, as one of the port operators in Port of Novi Sad, has recently launched a container service on Danube, which is another attempt to establish such kind of transportation on the Danube. So let's hope that this time it will be successful.
Thank you. And what would be one of the lessons that the Western Balkan sports in maritime or in river can draw from what has been happening in Greece after 2008?
I see you can have a good future in journalism too. Good questions to everyone. I think that we need to work all together, including with China, in my opinion, but also apply European policies which are already in usage for years, including the screening mechanism.
Well, I love it as I mean, as the all-compassing framework. I mean, we are part of the EU, and everything that we do must be in this framework. So just for my last 30 seconds of glory this morning, we spoke about ports, we spoke about waterways, we talk about maritime transport, and we also mentioned, but I think I should underline the role that engineers, managers, politicians, businessmen, people, seafarers, financiers, and governments, etc., have in all this. So when we talk about port, we talk about all those actors. The second point is that ports are big examples of cooperation, multi-layered connectivity. Everybody comes together in a port eventually. They are unique centers of innovation that shape the territory. Professor Metala mentioned the fact that it was the port and afterwards was the city. So, I mean, basically, Durrës belongs to the people, the port of Durrës. They are key for security and resilience. I mean, the new design of Durrës port has this NATO basis. We were also talking about Alexandropoulos and becoming a very important dual use and military mobility component in the overall strategy. What is basically, as Matej mentioned it, we have a plot. He set it the scene, he set it the plot. What are the next steps? Well, I would say that the next steps for the Western Balkan Six would be to have as many possible ports into the new core 10T map, as many as possible. And here I would close by thanking again, but never enough, the role of Transport Permanent Secretariat and of Matej, thanking Piero for hosting us, and also underlining the role that politicians have, or the political will have, in making this all possible. So if the politicians do not support it, it will not happen. Thank you very much, Konrad Adenauer Stiftung, for supporting the study. And thank you very much, Piero, who is not here, but he's with us somewhere, his photo. We'll find it, for hosting us. Thank you for coming. Thank you for staying here until the end and even 10 minutes more, which is a fantastic compliment. And the lunch is outside.